Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com USA, today's NFL Wire site, covering, of course, Arizona Cardinals, recording with my co-host from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, Seth Cox, as we are in episode 765, and we continue with our 2026 NFL Draft preview. On our last show, we talked about quarterbacks, and before we move on, this edition is about the running back position. But if the rumors weren't going to be there before, they're definitely now, Seth, because we know that the Cardinals have a top 30 at one of those official meetings, one of those official visits from Ty Simpson, and Daniel Jeremiah keeps pointing at the Cardinals as a good fit for Ty Simpson. And I saw another one and we know that Cardinals general manager Monty Ossenfort and Texans general manager Nick Caserio tight, pegging the Texans for a potential trade to go from 34 to 28. Oh, what are we going to do? But that isn't even it, because Carson Beck as well. The Cardinals are taking a long look at Carson Beck too. What do you make of all of this, Seth?
I think it just signifies that they understand that they have to get a quarterback in this draft. And so now they're just figuring out, what does that mean? Does that mean you get a guy that you're going to put the next 2 to 3 years on? And I get it. You can always move on, right? You can always, but you have to make a decision. And it's more, I think, more focused on Ty Simpson, right? You have to make a decision on Ty Simpson. Are you willing to move up theoretically in front of the New York Jets and take him before they can, if they sit and choose to pick him at 33? I mean, you look ahead of them, the Miami Dolphins at 30. I mean, potentially, right? From there, maybe the Cleveland Browns at 24. And then
that gets the more you say it, the more gross it gets.
Right. And then the only other team before the Jets pick at 33 is the Jets at 16. Right. I mean, people have floated the Rams at 13. I've talked to some Rams people, and they kind of chuckle at that idea because they go, we're all in on Matt Stafford. Like, this is the last run with Matt Stafford. So why would we be going, hey, what we have with Matt Stafford, let's lessen it even and draft his replacement, who, may not even fit the physical profile. I mean, you and I talked about it. We discussed it a little bit. He's kind of, Ty Simpson's closer to Jared Goff than he is Matt Stafford in terms of, physical talents. And then also always 4 inches shorter than Jared Goff. So that's the thing, is like, it doesn't even really make sense. And so, the Cardinals are doing their due diligence. We have to, applaud them on that and making that call of like, who is he worth moving back into the first round for? Because I think we can all agree he's not worth the 3rd overall pick.
Oh, no, please no. No.
And so what this is just doing, really, Jess, is it's saying, okay, is this the guy we want to trade up for, or is this the guy that you stick and pick? And if he's there at 34, you're comfortable with it, you've done all your due diligence, but like you'll take him at 34, but there's not anything extra that you're going to go do to get this guy. And then the other reality of it is, Jess, is you mentioned the Carson Beck situation. For Beck, the Cardinals quarterback room is Jacoby Brissett, Gardner Minshew. We can throw in Keaton Slovis because he's there.
There.
But literally none of those guys are on the roster for 2027. And if you're Mike LaFleur, you're looking at that and you're going, okay, I would like a quarterback that, even if he's in only year 2, he's in year 2 in my system. Like, I don't want to have to go. I mean, we've already seen the catastrophe of trying to go get Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, are you going to do that again? Are you going to re-sign Jacoby Brissett or Gardner Minshew? So, a guy like Carson Beck, kind of makes sense. And the idea of, oh, okay, I can go get this guy at pick 65. And I still don't think he's worth it, but let's just say pick 65. And I've got him under contract. He's my guy. Whether or not he ends up being the day one starter or even a starter, I have him in the room for the next couple of seasons, and that matters. And so I think that's one of the things that you can look at and say, okay, that would make some sense, because the reality is, good, bad, or otherwise, they genuinely don't have a quarterback under contract at all.
No, they do not. And interesting is when Mike LaFleur he spoke at the annual meeting, had that coaches breakfast. We got the first sort of insight into traits he wants in a quarterback, and it became very clear that he wants size and toughness, like, before anything else. Isn't that? I mean, and I guess it makes sense that Tyler Murray would not have been his guy, right? The first thing he said about Jacoby Brissett, he looks the part. He's big, and you don't have to teach him football. Well, no, he's been in the league forever. Come on. Gardner Minshew, like who's a little smaller, but he pointed that out. And so if we're looking at quarterback builds, would you say that Ty Simpson even comes close to what LaFleur would like?
No, and that's why the entire situation is so odd to me, because it just seems like an exercise in trying to fit a quarterback to a quarterback needy team, and the Cardinals are quarterback needy. Like, just there's no doubt that they need a quarterback. Like
they definitely do. So
getting upset that they keep fitting square pegs into round holes is really it's a futile effort from our end. But
Beck makes sense, right? He's got the size to it. He's not massive, but 6'5", 230. So he's got the build for it. He's got a gazillion starts. You're going to feel like that in the NFL. He will be a really high floor quarterback. It feels like.
And I think the reality is, Jess, more than anything else, and you and I have discussed this. I think the reality is, more than anything else, is if you can get him at the right price, he checks all the boxes. Again, I'm not necessarily
round 4 or later, please.
I know I'm not a fan at 65, but I would understand it just based on, again, what the room is right now. I don't want it, not saying I want it, not advocating. 104 ideal, done. I don't care, but I would understand if it was at 65, but yeah. So that's where we're at with that. They're doing their due diligence. We can't really complain about it. Another emphasis is just, let's be honest, if they don't draft one, guess what? Now they've gone through the process for a year to kind of figure out what's important to them in the interview process, right? So okay, you don't draft one at X, Y, or Z this year, but now you've got your boxes that you want checked for next year when you're in those interviews with Arch Manning, or you're in the interviews with Dante Moore, or you're in the interviews with the kid that went from North Texas to Oklahoma State, right? Like you've got the boxes that you want to check in those interviews to see if those are the guys you want. And that does make a little sense to me as well. So, I think it's due diligence. I'm not excited by any means of these guys. But I understand what they're doing, and you're now really just kind of in the moments of, okay, is this where they're going to go, or is this just, like we said, fodder, endless fodder for what is a room bereft of a quality starter.
Yeah, coming up next on the Res Zero podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on Live. Let's move on. We're going to talk about the running back position in the NFL draft, the guys to know, potential fits for the Cardinals. That's coming next on Recipe Red. We're back on the Rise Receiver podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the web, as we move on to the next positional preview, and that being the running back position. I'm looking at CBS Sports prospect rankings. There are only 2 that are ranked as day 1 or 2 players, period. It goes Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, like the top 2 running backs in the classes being from Notre Dame, and then everyone else, which would be, ranked 123 or lower, which, if you follow the rankings, would all be day 3. So is this draft class at running back a star and then day 3 picks, or are they going to get pushed into day 2 at all?
No, I mean, I think Jadarian Price could go day 2. He's the top guy's backup. We're not quite at the stage of Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, or Ronnie Brown and Cadillac Williams, right? But Jadarian Price checks a lot of boxes. 5'11", 203, ran a 4.49 in the combine. So yeah, he's not quite as fast as Jeremiah Love, but he did a lot of good things. The thing I have kind of a red flag with regards to Jadarian is just, he's a guy that is really interesting in that he checks a lot of boxes, but there's a reality, Jess, and I don't know, maybe I think too much about this stuff. There's always that. My brain is broken. We're talking about a guy that's a 5th-year player. We're talking about a guy that blew out his Achilles in his first year, and then never truly started a game. Was he dynamic? Was he electric when he got the opportunities? Yeah, absolutely. No questions asked. But this is a guy that is really dynamic in the short area, explosive quickness, really puts a lot of pressure on his legs as a runner, and the way he runs, already torn an Achilles. How far behind is the other one? And then there's the other situation. This dude fumbled the ball a lot in not a lot of opportunities. So those 2 things kind of, again, I'm not anti Jadarian Price, but I just think with the Cardinals running back room, unless you're just out on Trey Benson and or you're concerned about the real health of James Conner, then going with Jadarian Price probably at that 65 is not something I would do. And then his teammate Jeremiah Love, I mean,
I wanted to ask about him because the question is this: is he worth a top 5 player? Not saying the Cardinals will. I think we with Tyler Algier, whether I think they could still do it. I think they won't. But is Jeremiah Love the type of running back that is worth a top 5 pick, top 3 pick? That is he a football changing running back for a team?
I think he is. I really think he's a dynamic playmaker. You know, I don't know if he's Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know if he's Bijan Robinson. I don't know if he's that, but he's a guy that wins at all 3 phases of the game. He's a home run hitter. We've obviously seen the home run speed, right? Everybody remembers the 99, 98, whatever it was, yard touchdown run. I do wonder if he's a guy that, and I don't necessarily mean this in a negative way, but like, is he a guy that fits what LaFleur and then, by proxy, McVay wants in his runners? And what I mean by that is you look at Kyron Williams, right? Another Notre Dame back, excellent player, but not nearly, no question, not nearly as explosive as Jeremiah Love. But is that a necessary entity of a LaFleur scheme? Like, are you going to, and I'm not saying this is the comp, but like, are you going to use Love similarly to Christian McCaffrey, the Shanahan tree, which, McVay obviously falls under? Are you going to use him? And so then in that case, there's literally no question that he's worth the pick, right? Because if you're going to use the running back in that mold, a la Christian McCaffrey, a la Bijan Robinson, then yeah, that's a running back worthy of a top 5 pick. But if you're looking at it more in terms of the way that Kyron Williams is used, and what I mean by that is a guy that's, used a lot as a runner, but not as much as a receiver. Like, you have to essentially, you look at Williams, right? And you look at his touches. Okay, so his touches. He was at 228 his second year rushing attempts and 260 touches overall, so 32 receptions. 316 rushing attempts, Jess, in 2024. But he, again, only 350 touches, and then 259 rushes this year, 295 touch. Like, this is a guy that, yeah, he's a capable receiver, but he's not used. Whereas you look at Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, those guys are averaging over 300 touches a season, right? In that system. You look at McCaffrey's 3.5 years with the team, 329 total touches, 339 total touches, 413 total touches. Like, the way that, so you need to understand like what LaFleur's usage is going to be for his running back to justify the pick. But Jeremiah Love's a guy that can do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And we know that we've kind of talked that. So let's kind of go with the rest. You've talked about the top 2. Coming next door, there's the Rise Up Seaward podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Let's talk about the rest of the running backs. Who might fit what the Cardinals want to do? That's coming next on Rise Up Seaward. We're back on the Rise Up Seaward podcast, best hour Cardinals talk on the web. Is Price the sole day 2 guy? Are there going to be the other running backs that sneak up on that, or are we going to see a run on them on day 3?
I think we'll see a run on day 3. I mean, you look at the consensus big board right now, Jess. Love is the 4th overall player. From there are 3 other top 100 consensus picks. Jadarian Price, but he's 44, so that's round 2. Mike Washington Jr. is the consensus 3rd overall back. He's ranked 64th overall, but again, it just depends on where you look. PFF's got him 71. I think the NFL has him like down in the 100. I mean, so just again, it depends on where you look. Washington's, I mean, don't get me wrong, the athleticism is breathtaking, right? We talked a little bit about him via Talon Green at the combine. Washington 6'1", 223, so a big guy, 4.33 with a 39-inch vert and a 10.8 broad. Played at Buffalo, then New Mexico State, then went to Arkansas. But I mean, you're talking about a guy that like, for all of that, never really stood out until this year. Just over 1,000 yards this year for the first time, but 6.4 yards per carry. So it shows that explosiveness. Here's the problem, Jess. He's not great in the zone scheme. So I don't see him as a fit with the LaFleur's stretch zone, wide zone type of offense. He only had 72 attempts in rushing as a zone runner. Much more of like a gap scheme guy. So again, it's not that they're like singular in what they do, but just fits a little more in that range. So I don't, and especially if you're talking, you're talking late day or late round 2, early round 3. I don't see any way he's worth that. Jonah Coleman's an interesting one, but he'd be like if they traded back, got like that 90 to 100 comp pick area. Running back out of Washington, came in. I want to make sure I get their measurements right. I like
5'8", 220.
Yeah. So he came in, short, 5'8",
short arms, man.
But yeah,
28, for running back, whatever, but 28 and 7.8-inch arms for a dude.
Yeah. The issue with him being that he really regressed this year. I mean, just really took a step back. And I know Washington as a whole kind of did as a team, right? But we talk about that with all players. 2023, Coleman, I think he was with U of A at the time, had 871 yards rushing, 6.8 yards per carry. Then he went to Washington, had over 1,000 rushing yards. Dropped down to 5.5 yards per carry, but playing in the Big Ten, obviously a better conference. So to be able to grind out over 1,000 yards on a team that wasn't, that was coming off their big season, lost Michael Penix, lost all those guys, and to do that as the lead back, that was impressive. But then this year, just went down to 758 yards, under 5 yards per attempt, which in college is bad. Let's just be honest. It's if you're averaging something under 5 yards attempt in college, I don't love it. And so you look at what he did, he fits that day 3 fit, but if he ends up going in the top 100, I just don't see it. From there, like you said, Jess, it's a pick what fits what you like, right? Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska, another guy came in at where's his measurements at? Let's see here. Where did we go, Emmett? Came in at 5'10", but 200 pounds. And 200 pounds isn't too small. So I don't want people to think that I'm saying it's too small. And he really, really played well this year, Jess. 1,458 rushing yards. He had over 150 all-purpose yards per game. Kind of that do-it-all back. and had a really nice, season this year after kind of being just part of the rotation the last couple of years at Nebraska. Um, he's a guy that if you got him in the fifth, sixth round, I would be okay with it. Again, the consensus, he's right in that top, 110 range. So I don't know if would you take him with your first pick of day 3? Here's my thing. It's a running back, and that probably is a safer overall pick, right, than most other positions.
Yeah.
So you're like, yeah, that fits. Nick Singleton, is next on that consensus list, Jess. He's a guy that everybody had insanely high expectations for, and then just never lived up to them. And that's always tough, but obviously a guy that didn't live up to the hype. I I could be wrong. So if I am, I apologize. But I'm pretty sure he replaced Saquon. Like he was the guy after Saquon. 6'2", 219. He was a 5-star, top 30 player nationally.
It was 5 years later.
Yeah. So when did Saquon?
2017. Oh, he came out in 2018.
Oh, he came out in 2018. But he was okay. So he was like supposed to be the next guy, like the next Saquon, though, because like he was a top 30 national recruit, man. Like this is a guy that everybody was like, oh, he is going to explode. And he was
really good in 2024.
Excellent. And that's what I was going to say. He kind of reminds me of those quarterbacks, Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik, that we talked about, where everybody was like, oh my God, he's finally getting to that point. And then you're like, oh crap. This year, he goes 1,100 yards, 6.4 yards per carry in the Big Ten. And you're like, all right, here it comes. Like he's finally there. And then 547 yards, 4.4 yards per carry. Like obviously the goods are there in terms of the physical makeup, right? But I just don't see any way that you take him maybe round 6, 7 type of thing. And then from there again, it's a who do you like? I know some people are high on like Seth McGowan, the kid out of Kentucky. I mean, it's just again another big back, 6 foot, 220 pounds, sub 4.5, but explosive jumps, 42.5-inch vert, almost an 11-foot broad jump, which is absurd. But I mean, this dude is gotta be close to 25 already, Jess. He was at Oklahoma in the COVID 2020 season. He got dismissed for a plethora of felonies. Played at Texas College, played at Butler Community College, went to New Mexico State, and reminded everybody he's got a lot of talent. I mean, he really does. But it's just, I don't know, man. A kid, he's number 5 or 6 or 7 on the consensus board. I mean, it's just, this is not the year. Like, if you're not going to take Jeremiah Love, if you're the Cardinals, I don't see the point unless there's a guy that's like a special teams dynamo that's going to give you great return stuff. But isn't that something that they've addressed in free agency a couple times over already, right?
Yeah, they have. A name that intrigued me a little bit because of just some of the athleticism was Roman Hemby. 6 foot 207. He was a workhorse at Indiana. Where is he at athletically to do anything in the pros?
The hard part with like a guy like Hemby is, again, he's on the smaller side, right? So 6 foot 207. So he's not overly small. But a guy that, again, played at Maryland for 4 seasons, Then got, his redshirt fifth year at Indiana and was their lead back. I mean, 1,120 yards. Not much of a receiver.
In his days at Maryland, he had 33, 38, and 40 catches in the his last 3 years at Maryland. So maybe it was more of a usage thing, kind of like Jonathan Taylor at Wisconsin, where like he could do it, but they just didn't.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things about Himby to me is, and why he is an interesting name, is because he kind of, from a size, athleticism standpoint, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Kyron Williams, right? Like Williams was a touch smaller at 195, but like Williams didn't check any of the boxes, and they have similar running styles. And he's a guy, in my opinion, that you can get late day 3. Now, my opinion clearly doesn't matter, but I just, he's a guy you can get late day 3, a guy that can really, kind of be similar to what Kyron Williams was in that McVay offense. An interesting fit overall, and a guy that would check those boxes that you kind of mentioned, right? The other one that has been getting a little bit of run as of late, and Matt Miller, I want to make sure I got the name right. Matt Miller dropped him as an option for the Cardinals 7-round mock. Did you? And I was a little surprised. Like, obviously I'm not a huge, I think it's, coming off. I'm not a huge fan of using a running back in this one. But DeMond Claiborne, the Wake Forest back, is an interesting name. I know that Lance Zierlein likes him more than most people. I think Lance had him as like running back 5. And so like that was an interesting one, but he came in a little undersized, but man, he's athletic, 4.37, right? But he came in at 5'10", 190. And you look at what he did, he struggles a little bit with patience as a zone runner, and that's why I was like a little curious why Matt mocked him to the Cardinals, because we're assuming, obviously we don't know yet, but we're assuming, right, that he's going to have a similar rushing offense to what McVay likes to do. So guys that make sense in that are patient runners that have been effective in the zone scheme. And so those are the names that have gotten bandied about with the Cardinals. Again, this is just, it's a class, our boy Chip Trainum, played at ASU, remember, and then was a linebacker at Ohio State, and then went to Toledo to finish his career. Maybe he's a guy that they look at as another big body, 5'10", 225 type of guy. But yeah, this is just one of the extensions of a class that is, not as attractive as we've seen in the past, right?
That we will wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Sierra podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk on the Web, and come back with another show that will focus on the wide receivers. And with that, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, Sea Red, and of course, rise up, Sea Red.